everyone, and welcome to this month's episode of Miracle Conversations. We are in October of 2023, and my name is Brittany New. I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning. Dave is an executive coach. He lives in Florida. I am an entrepreneur, and I specialize in graphic design and branding, living in Barcelona, Spain. Currently doing a relocation back to Southern California, so that's exciting. And for any of you who are new here, we like to talk about miracle mindsets, and we pull inspiration from a variety of sources, but namely A Course in Miracles, which is a book that kind of created the foundation for Dave's studies and Dave's teaching and coaching. And then Dave has his own book called Nightmares to Miracles, and we're also pulling some information from there. So this year we've been doing a theme on miracles, which is kind of the overarching theme for this whole show. But specifically this year, we're talking about miracles as they show up in A Course in Miracles, different texts. And we're contrasting kind of A Course in Miracles section and then a section of Dave's book and finding some kind of overlaps in that. So today's no exception. And interestingly, today we are going to be covering the anchor lesson that's been kind of anchoring the whole year. So I'm gonna that's the precursor, and then I'm gonna let Dave do the proper introduction of the lesson and all of the teaching, and we're just gonna see what we can learn today. So thank you for being here to our audience. And Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do, and then you can lead us into today.
Great, Brittany. Thank you so much. Good to see you again.
Likewise.
For this month's show, yeah. And thank you for that excellent, superb layup. So yeah, I'm an executive coach and live in Florida, as Brittany, as you said, and I love Florida. Man, I love me some Florida. It's just there's so many reasons why, but I know there's the Florida man syndrome, and people, like to talk guff about Florida. I'm aware, but I just so far so good. I mean, my let's see, not to get too far afield, but my grandmother retired here from Cleveland, Ohio, in 1968, and then my mother joined her in the 80s, and then me and my siblings have been coming down progressively since then. I really moved here permanently in 2012, so I've been here a little over 10 years, but I still love it very, very much. I'm about 2 hours north of Miami, easy to get there if I want the big city and bright lights. Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach, they're all, progressively closer. So anyway, that's just a little bit about the Florida vibe. And I'm always looking for good shows on TV and cable. It's not called cable, but streaming about Florida. So they have a little collection of things there. Who knows? They might start to feature in our show. I do put them in the newsletter sometimes when I find a good one. So in any case, back to the point, the topic at hand. I am an executive coach, a recovering psychotherapist, psychoanalytic psychotherapist. I was trained in individual, couples, and family, or marriage, as it's sometimes called, and group psychotherapy with a psychoanalytic component and a spiritual component, and then over time morphed all of that into executive coaching. And the real specific focus, as you mentioned, Brittany, that I have is miracle mindsets. So a miracle can be defined as a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve, and that's sourced through spirit within. So my work and this this podcast, focuses on how to develop steadfast miracle mindsets. And I do this with leaders of all kinds, mostly CEOs, executives, and entrepreneurs, and increasingly have been moving into the high net worth, ultra high net worth arena. That means clients north of, say, $25 million. And that's been a miracle in the evolution of my practice, and maybe more on that one day. But the work we do is usable by anybody. So again, more on that towards the end. I've set this up so that anybody can use the materials anyone who's interested and called to them. All right. So as you mentioned, Brittany, we are uh, focusing. This is our last call for the way we count the years. Uh, this is our last call on our theme for this year, which is specifically miracles, miracles in ACIM. We're about to go to the new topic next month, which is vision in A Course in Miracles. The way A Course in Miracles uses vision. And we're going to talk about that for the whole next year. So we'll get into the topic on miracles for today in just a moment. Um, but I wanted to highlight that I've had a personal, sort of, as you mentioned, Brittany, anchor lesson, which is lesson 47, which I've traveled with through the whole year. So I've been thinking about that, and reading it and studying it, and it's really been the anchor lesson for me. And I've put that out on each of our shows, or at least most of the time. And I think I'm going to do it for another year. I'm going to make that my anchor lesson for another year. I love it that much. And the reason I'm going into that in a little bit more detail about that today is that that is our featured lesson for today. And I'll try and tie in how it relates to miracles. And Brittany, I know you'll call my attention to that if I'm wandering away from how it ties in. All right, so we'll get to that in just a moment. And then one of my favorite sections of our intro is to talk about you a little bit, Brittany, and how our evolving uh, working relationship here has been a miracle, right? So um, I always go through these steps just to rehearse what a miracle it is. It's like, okay. So the way we first met was when I contacted you for help with my worksheets, which were just basic, like, Word documents. And they were just, they didn't look good, but I didn't know how good they did not look at the time. It was when I started getting your redone, makeovers that I was like, wow, okay, this is not my area. It's definitely Brittany's area. So we started with the worksheets, and then I was like, hey, by the way, is it asking too much for you to consider working with me on my video modules for my online course? Showed up and packaged those into amazing, just modules with intros and outros. And I was like, wow, okay. That all got repurposed and edited into the book. And a huge step in that direction was how you'd laid everything out for me. And then that all sort of brings us to this monthly show. I was like, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. Would you be interested in sort of helping me with that and interviewing me and being a sidekick on the show? And just so I think it's more interesting. Um, other people have done it, and late night TV and things like that. So, and you were amenable, and so here we are. Now, the thing about that is that you do this part, you show up on the show with me, you make it so much more interesting, and then you're welcome. And I think compared to me just droning on about something, it's like, oh,
Two is
it's
better than one. Two is
yeah,
better than
yeah.
one.
It just feels cool, and
Mhm.
and then you take the raw video, you edit it with the intro, the outro, you transform it into an audio podcast, and then you also create a blog from it, a written blog. So I'm like, wow, okay, that's just amazing. I mean, it's such a time saver and so efficient. And then all of this gets packaged and distributed through my social media channels, and then all of that in turn gets sort of highlighted in the monthly newsletter that goes out. So um, it really is such an amazing time saver, and the fact that um, we crossed one another's paths, and we've never actually met in person, although there might be a chance to do some work eventually, some re-editing of the course once we get there. But it's like, what a miraculous, amazing sort of process, and we're ending our third year, about to start our fourth year in this alliance. So, anything you want to say to people about? I know you mentioned it earlier what you do, but anything else you want to say about what you do and where people can find you, Brittany.
Sure. Thank you, Dave, for that shout out and that testimonial. I love working with you too, as I always say. But if you guys want to find out more about what I do or how to get in touch with me, I've got a website, which is brittanynew.com. And the link will be in the show notes for that. And I also have a YouTube channel. You can just search my name, Brittany New, and I post some tutorials on how people can kind of take control of their media and do some designs for different things related to business, particularly small businesses. So if that is up your alley, then you can find some videos there too. But thanks again, Dave, for the shout out. And I look forward to continuing to do this. We've committed to doing a whole nother year together. So I'm really excited about that. And it's a real highlight of my month to do this show because it's just so positive and it's just a good little reset to kind of anchor into the miracle mindsets and stuff. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome, Brittany. And at first I was like, oh, am I going to say this every month? That could, is that going to be, am I going to do this every month, this testimonial? And I'm like, I mean, the easy link to it is that it's actually a real miracle. That's what makes it so easy to
Yeah.
do, right? Because it's like, wow. I mean, every time I recount the unfolding evolution, I'm like, it's like, oh, it's just been so empowering to the work. We get along perfectly. We collaborate. It's a light touch. It's not a lot of heavy lifting, and the result feels like it's so huge to be able to put out the content that we do. So it makes it easy to say, and I actually now look forward to it. You know, it doesn't feel like it never felt like a chore. But at first, I was like, wow, are you gonna keep saying this every show? And now I'm like, yeah, definitely. It's like, you know, it's ritualizing the celebration of this particular miracle, especially because sometimes collaborative work can be tough to accomplish with longevity, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's
Yeah,
so many different reasons to celebrate what we've got. So, well, great.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, moving to the topic for today, which is lesson 47 in A Course in Miracles, lesson 47. The headline is God is the Strength in Which I Trust. And this has been my personal anchor lesson. Proposed it to the audience on our calls and also in the two groups for ACIM that I run. Um, and But I don't push it hard and don't really get into it that much. Um, Although I'll mention that we have dealt with it in another year, a different year. We gave it its own treatment. It was relevant. Um, but this will be, I think, very different. You know, after having lived with it for a whole year, personally, I think it'll be very interesting. So to see, to see what the kind of the evolution is. Um, so let me just jump in there, and then I'll start checking with you. We'll go back and forth to see if there are any thoughts. So I use this lesson a lot with my clients too, right? So it starts out saying in paragraph one, if you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. What can you predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on? What will give you the ability to be aware of all the facets of any problem and resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? Then, after that series of rhetorical questions, in paragraph two, it says, of yourself, you can do none of these things. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. So when a client, I mean, after I've listened to a client and what their travails are and difficulties and challenges are, if I hear that they're dealing with fear and anxiety and anger and things like that, I say, let me share this passage with you, and we can use it to break down a little bit of what you might be going through. And so I read it to them. They've got it in hand. I've emailed it to them, texted it to them. They're looking at it, and I say, "What do you think about the passage?" And they'll give me their ideas on it. My main sort of takeaway from this section that we just looked at is we essentially, as human beings, don't have enough computing power to track all the different dimensions of any problem we're dealing with. If I've got a problem like my car broke down and I need to take it to the shop, It might just seem like a simple, sort of straightforward thing. Call your towing company, have them come tow the car and take it. Although this lesson is saying that there are so many layers of problems related to that problem that it's not a good idea to just simply default to, I know how to take care of this. That we should filter every challenge and difficulty, every problem we're trying to solve through the inner divine. Call it the Holy Spirit, call it the inner Buddha, call it the quantum field, whatever one wants to call it. I like calling it more and more the inner genius or the inner GPS. The reason being, we just don't have enough computing power to really take in all the variables and solve the problem. And that kind of makes sense to most people, right? It's like if we've all heard of the butterfly effect. If a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil, it affects the ice caps in the North Pole or something like that. You know, so there's a billion times a billion times a billion butterfly effects all around the world each moment,
Hmm.
affecting everything that everybody else is doing. There's not enough computing power. So I really like how this sets it up that way and says, yeah, good luck. You know, if you're just relying on
Yeah.
yourself, you're going to have a hard time. So, any
Absolutely.
thoughts, any reactions, and then I'll, you know, go to the rest of it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it starts off by saying you have a right to be anxious and fearful and apprehensive if this is how you've been living your life. So that's kind of a validating place to start, because sometimes they say don't be anxious, don't be stressed, don't be afraid, and you're like, but how? I have all of these issues. And so it starts off where you are. Yes, it makes sense if you're afraid. It's probably because you've been putting your strength in yourself, and that can only get you so far. So I think that's a good way to phrase it, in a unique way. Hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And in this digital age, right, everything is
Hmm.
about digital sort of effectiveness, and the GPS is a great tool.
Hmm.
I don't have to know the details. I just have to have a destination, and I trust in the GPS, and it'll navigate me there. Compared to 30 years ago, stopping at the gas station to like ask directions and scribble some stuff down, which was like, oh my God, like here you can go 10 different places a day, not knowing where any of them are, and your GPS will just lead you efficiently and easily because it's doing all the computing and stuff. So this is a way to tee it up to talk about in a coaching session or for myself every day, to talk about tapping into the inner GPS, the inner divine, right? And so the next section of the lesson then highlights that it says it more explicitly. God is your safety in every circumstance, and then it almost uses GPS sort of like references. It says His voice speaks for him in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon His strength and protection. There are no exceptions to this. I'm like, this is one of those sections I have to read over and over again. I'm like, is it really saying what I think it's saying, or am I making it up? You know, and it says it. I mean, it's like you are guaranteed successful outcomes if you listen to that voice telling you step by step what to do. I'm like, wow, that's just, it's worthy of pausing for a minute. Now, part of the reason I do this lesson and want to do it some more is that increasingly it occurs to me that a lot of what I hear in the media is done without recourse to this, at least explicitly. There could be people who are doing it, of course, uh, um, but on an explicit level, it just seems like it's an attempt to try and look at problems and solve problems without recourse to the inner GPS, the inner divine. So I'm like, well, that makes me want to do it all the more because each day you get pulled out of that way of problem solving, with the divine. So, any thoughts? And then we're going to move towards closure on this lesson. Just a few more things to highlight, and then we're done with the lesson. Any thoughts on your part?
Yeah, I just thought of like a little metaphor for this. I feel like it's kind of like trying to sail a boat without taking into account the wind, which is out of
Mm-hmm.
your control. But like you
Mm-hmm.
can you can buy the ropes, you can put up the sail, you can get all your gear and all your team, and you can like do everything in your power. But the most important variable that you're going to be using is going to be the wind. And yeah, I feel like sometimes in life we live our lives like that, and we're just like doing all the things that we can do. but ignoring the actual thing that moves things along, which is, yeah, this
Mm,
other power outside of us.
wow, that's a great analogy. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that really brings it to life and colors it in beautifully. Appreciate that. Um, I'll have to keep that in mind as I continue to work with this for another year. So, thank you, Brittany. So, the next part of this is about the meditation practice that leads us to plug in to that inner source of guidance and protection and strength, right? So, it says 4 5 minute practice periods are necessary, and longer and more frequent ones are urged. That's a discipline. That's a practice to do 4 5 minute periods of practice, and then to do more than that and to make them longer and sprinkle them through the day. It's like that's just great as a discipline. Um, and then it says here, uh, spend a minute or two in searching your mind for situations in your life which you have invested with fear, dismissing each one by telling yourself, God is the strength in which I trust. So that's a very specific way of tapping into inner guidance in a source and then looking at something that feels scary in our actual day to day lives and then saying, God, you are the strength in which I trust to help me through this, to get me through this, right? Just to emphasize that point, it says, now try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. It says a few more things, and then it's just all about making very clear that on our own, we can't really avoid failure eventually. But with a connection to this inner source, we're guaranteed success. Um, now, I sometimes, I think, shock my clients when I say, oh, Dave is as dumb as a doorknob. I've been saying this more and more. Dave is as dumb as a doorknob. And people are like, oh, don't say stuff like that about yourself. And I'm like, well, the reason I'm saying it is because of what this lesson is teaching. I mean, you know, I don't think I'm a complete idiot, but what I'm saying is that on my own, relative to the divine and the problems that we're trying to solve in the world, yeah, I know myself well enough to know uh, I'll screw things up and pretty badly eventually. And most leaders that you watch have the same problem in one way or another. It's not a big mystery. Um, so when I say I'm as dumb as a doorknob, what I'm really reminding myself is without the divine, that's what it's going to eventually look like, and so we don't want to go there. Let's see, and it's kind of fun to joke around with that a little bit. So last thing I want to highlight here, and then I'll turn it over to you for any feedback, and then we'll go to the book. My book for today is that it really, and I've enumerated these for myself, and I meditate on them now when I'm doing this lesson. Right? It says. Um, in the latter phase of the practice period, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. That's kind of like the first point. The next point is you will recognize that you have reached it if you feel a sense of deep peace, however briefly. The next instruction is to let go all the trivial things that churn and bubble on the surface of your mind and reach down and below them. Now get this, to the kingdom of heaven. It's like the kingdom of heaven is somewhere in there, in the mind, right? And this lesson is guiding us to reach into the kingdom of heaven. Then it amplifies this several different ways as follows. There's a place in you where there is perfect peace. Perfect peace. Wow, okay. That sounds promising, more than promising. There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. Now that's the miracle flavor. Right? There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. So, as I mentioned before, miracle is can be considered uh, a problem that seems impossible to solve. So here we're being guided to tap into a place where nothing is impossible, or nothing is impossible to solve. That's the place of miracles. And then finally, it says there is a place in you where the strength of God abides, and we're trying to make contact with all of this inside. Pretty amazing. So that's it on the work through of the lesson. Any thoughts? Anything you want to comment on?
No, not on that section. Pretty clear, I think.
All right, good. So what I'm looking at is I'm going to do this for a whole another year. I'm going to study it, read it, think about it, build on what I've already done. I'll be mentioning it on our calls, and then it'll be interesting to see, um, what a full year of doing it again brings. And before we leave this lesson, just a revisiting of what the new lesson is going to be, which not lesson, but the new theme is going to be,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is vision. Right. So vision, just to give a sense of it, vision is a way of seeing that has nothing to do with physical vision. Right. So the course makes a big deal out of this, and at first it can almost seem tormenting at times. Like, oh, you're not really seeing anything. I'm like, what? The room was dark, and I dropped my whatever, and I need to find it. And I brought out a flashlight, and I can see perfectly well where I dropped it. What do you mean I'm not seeing anything? And what it's getting at is that we're not seeing the things that we really should be seeing, the things I enumerated, right?
Mm-hmm.
The peace of God, the kingdom within, the place inside where nothing is impossible, the place where God's strength abides. The external has almost nothing to do with that. Therefore, we don't have real vision. And so the whole point is how to cultivate real vision directed towards the inside. And there's another like implication, which is that uh, when the course uses the word vision, it's actually referring to all the miracles that are waiting for us. That, in other words, miracles have already been set up for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no real performance around them. We don't have to manufacture the miracle. We're simply tapping into the place where the miracles already exist. So I'm excited about a whole year of doing this again. And as I mentioned to you in our prep, we did this a year of vision in 2018, and I was reviewing and looking and praying about what the next topic would be, and we already did vision. I was surprised because I thought it was some big brand new topic we were going to look at, and it's all there. I mean, it's all the lessons we covered. I was like, wow, I can't remember that we did it, and I can't remember anything we talked about from there. Now, it doesn't mean it's not in there somewhere, but it's just I had no memory of it. So I'm excited that we can do it and document, together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So okay. So we're going to move on to the book now, and
Okay.
this will be the last treatment of the book. So let me see if I can share my screen. Great. Okay. So this is the cover of the book. There's a whole story about the cover that we've looked at in previous issues. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom. Let's see if I can move this here. I want to scroll to the bottom. This is the back cover of the book. Uh, reduce that a little bit. So just gives an overview. And then what we're really going to do right now is just summarize a few things towards the end of the book, right? So um, we've got a list of the different books that I've referenced here. These are the references. Uh, make it a little bit bigger. And then, so this is a very sort of tight, taut summary of uh, the books that I think can really help people uh, transform around what this book is about. Very different from the dissertation, which is my first book, Signs and Wonders. I was in an apartment in New York City, and I must have had 2,000 books in the living room. And these books became the bane of my existence. I couldn't figure out what to do with them, how to organize them, how to study them, how to extract them, and send them back to the library. It was a lot of just, uh, I was surprised how challenging that part of the process was. The mechanics of actually handling these books and keeping them organized. There's just way too many books. So anyway, this is like a very sort of reduced, boiled down version with some additions. We've got the movies that we looked at last time, the miracle movies. So then in this appendix here, page 131, 132, and on, we have links to all the things we referred to in chapter 4, the mind training, right? So these are the things that if one listens to, you get, I think, great traction with your own mind training around miracle mindset. So there's something in each of the categories that are important, but they're all links, or you can find related links um, that can be helpful for each of the different areas. Here's
Mhm.
about the author. Uh, and then also by the author here, I just want to pause a little bit here. We do have a lot of this material in our show notes in various ways, but I just want to highlight how this is in the book, right? So, um, main email address if you want to stay in touch, contact me, ask questions. There's a bit.ly, a shortened link. It still works. 3 years later, you can, since the book was published, you can take the link, copy the link, and put it in, and it'll give you a portal to sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get the free 9-page guide that goes along with sort of all the different things that I do. And then here's another link, uh, bit.ly link that has a password associated to it, N2M, or Nightmares to Miracles. And if you put that in, it'll give you a 17-page roadmap. But the real selling point about that, again, these are all free, nothing you have to pay for, but the real sort of selling point about that is that you get all the high resolution images that are in the book, but if you actually buy the paperback, you can use this link to get um, in color the high resolution images and blow them up and see them in more detail because truth be told, they are a bit small in the book. So I recommend that if you have the book, you just uh, opt in for this. Um, let's see. The website for the Nightmares to Miracles, the main website, nightmarestomiracles.com, for people who may not be aware of it. Um, let's see, there's a free Facebook group uh, that you can get to following that link. Um, and then there's our podcast. You can get to with that, the link that's presented there. And then a link to my first book, right? So again, this is just a few of the things that are available. There's a lot more, but if you have questions about anything, you're in our audience and you have questions about the book, um, don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions or try and resolve any kind of a problem you're having if any of the links are out of date or anything like that. All right, so that's it. Uh, that's what I wanted to cover for today. I'm going to stop the share and then check with you, Brittany, to see if you have any thoughts before we finish for today.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it's no surprise that you've got all these resources in the back of your book. You are very passionate about this. This isn't just your job, and you're so lucky that you found something that you were so passionate about, that you're thinking about this and creating content for this. Like, probably every day of the month, you're doing something related to this topic, which is quite niche, I might say. Miracle mindsets. Like, how often do most people spend their time thinking about something so specific like that? So I think it's amazing that you found this subject that you're so passionate about, and that's what makes you such a good coach, because you can transmit all the stuff that you believe with like 110% of your heart onto your clients. And that's what makes it so easy for me to do this show with you. This isn't my passion or my niche specifically. I mean, I'm interested, I'm open, but just getting to talk to you about this, someone who's really on fire about it, it's such a privilege. So everyone should know that this is your legacy. I think you wanted to say this book was part of your legacy that you wanted to leave, and your course actually parallels the information in the book, or reverse. So if anyone is interested in not just learning more about it, but working with Dave, I think it's a really good opportunity, because he really knows this stuff. You did your dissertations and you studied this, and honestly, not a lot of people can do. There's a lot of people in the self-help industry that watched a few YouTube videos and now they're a mindset coach, but this isn't the same thing that Dave's got going on here. He's a full-on expert, like, no joke. So I just wanted to say all that. And yeah, we don't plan this out. He brags about me, I brag about him, but it's all genuine and authentic. So yeah, I think that's it for me. And thanks for another good show.
Yeah, thank you. You opened up a little bit of a window. Just so real
Hmm.
quickly, we're not
Yeah.
in a rush, but just real
No.
quickly, I I really appreciate what you said. Thank you.
Hmm.
It's very affirming and very powerful, and I received everything you said. Um, Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, at some point, it might be an interesting theme or topic for us to delve into more, right? Each person's niche, how we got into it, why we're
Hmm.
passionate about it. That could be an
Hmm.
interesting area of exploration. But the thing that you really uh, stimulated me to want to say is that earlier I mentioned that I've been migrating into the ultra high net worth arena, working with um, super wealthy clients and what their issues are.
Hmm.
So I'm aware that at times the price point for that work can be prohibitive, right? So people
Hmm.
they're interested, they want to work with me, and it's just not
Hmm.
feasible
Hmm.
outside of some of the pro bono work I might do.
Hmm.
Um, but in order to achieve my business objectives, I do have to stay firm with what the uh, the fee scale is and so on, and it's
Hmm.
so so I found that all these resources are a good way to support
Hmm.
people to stay connected
Mm.
and to not just do, not just impart that, oh, we've got all these different resources, you can go there, but to really lay them out, that
Mhm.
we've got a podcast, which is very
Mhm.
detailed and thorough in so
Mhm.
many different ways for each month. We've got the
Mhm.
book, we've got the course, we've got social media, and you can stay plugged in. And the book and the course are the roadmap that I use with any clients. I mean, that's the
Mhm.
roadmap I use. It's
Mhm.
there. Of course, it comes more alive when I'm teaching it or coaching it in a client
Mhm.
session. But so I just wanted to highlight that that's become a more intentional part of the give back. Is
Mhm.
to say that for 99 cents on the Kindle, you can have the book
Mhm.
and you can read the book. And if that's too difficult just to do, it's too abstract or too dry, you can look at any of the monthly podcasts we've had, which is amplifying a part of the book, but with the two of us. So there's a lot of different ways in which trying to make it accessible without sacrificing the price points for the one-on-one work. And quick final thing I'm going to say, and then I'm done. I'm going to zip it. Is that um, I don't usually do this because I have every confidence in you when you post the blog. But after last time I read the blog, uh, and I was moved nearly to tears by how amazing it was. I was
Really?
like, wow. I was
Oh.
reading and I was like, wow. What Brittany did was like, it was above and beyond. I mean, you just synthesized things, and I mean, you were teaching some. I mean, really communicating. Do you know what I mean? You weren't
Yeah.
just transcribing. You were. I don't know. It had a sparkle to it, just so you know. And
Okay,
yeah,
great,
I was
great.
looking at it. And I was like, does she do this all the time? Like I I better go back and review what because I mean it's I totally approve. I totally approve. But I
Thanks.
was like the
Awesome.
value that you were adding was like, oh my, it was giving me chills, and I was like, I
It's
was
what
moved
you
to
said, just a little bit of editing, that's all.
yeah, but I was moved by your dedication. It was so
Wow.
clear that there was a dedication of quality and value. So I just wanted to
Mhm.
make sure I got that in. Now I feel complete. Yeah. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
yeah,
All right, everyone. So, yeah, we usually like to end with a practical application for you, but the first part of this podcast, we talked about one that was from A Course in Miracles to do some meditation. So, you can read back the lesson. You can look in the link in the show notes, and you can find a lesson on A Course in Miracles and read the step-by-step meditation practice for yourself if you want to hear it in the direct words from the source, and then try that out and see if it helps you uncover some different source of strength that maybe you haven't been using lately. So I think I'm going to title this lesson "Miracles from God's Strength" or something with those kind of keywords, because
love
we
it.
like to put the word miracles in it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the theme for this lesson. And thanks everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next episode, which will be our new theme.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brittany, for everything. For a great title. I love
Likewise.
that title, and you do them all the time, and you do a great job with that. Another benefit of this and your creativity. And then thank you everyone who was with us throughout this whole year. Hope you enjoyed it. Please send us any feedback that you want to share with us, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.